Um, I'd like to start with just really quickly letting you know we were thrilled, and maybe some of you saw this, maybe some of you didn't. But we had a big win in Grosse Pointe Public Schools. For any of you in that area, you know about this. The fact that the gentleman who sued, I think it was the Parcells Middle School, he won. And we love Great Lakes Justice Center and David Coleman. And David is going to join us in September to go over the details of what happened, how it happened, how the federal court justice said, nope, school, you don't get to do that. That's totally trampling on this parent's First Amendment right. And he basically won, which is good news for all of us. Why we always want to share that because now you have precedent. Now you have standing. If case you run into a school yourself and you're being told, no, you can't be here. You're the parent. You absolutely can be there. And every time we can put tools in your toolbox to stand up for who you are and what you're doing with your schools, we want to. And I'm going to introduce Andy Anuzis first. Andy and I, believe it or not, go back about 35 years. So we started in some of our first races campaigning together for other candidates. And now Andy is running for the Wayne State University trustee. I believe they call them governors
Governors,
on the
yeah.
Wayne State Trustee Board. And he has been a principal himself and he knows education. And Andy, I'm going to let you share some of your background and why you're running.
Yeah, for sure. Well, great to meet all of you over the internet here. So there's a little bit of my background. I am married. I have four sons. My wife Dinah and I have been married for 35 years, and it's been a joy. Out of my four sons, this is kind of interesting. Two of them are college graduates, and two of them are skilled tradesmen. One of them is a welder. The other one's an electrician. And I always say this out on the campaign stuff. Guess which two I'm not worried about? I'll tell you, it's the skilled trades kids who I think are really going to flourish
Yeah.
in the economy going forward. So a little bit of my background. So I grew up in the city of Detroit. I was a high school principal for the last 5 years. The school that I led is called the Lincoln King Academy in the inner city of Detroit. It's 100% black population, 550 kids. And it's been both a huge joy and a challenge. I share with people that, yeah, boy, just last week, if you read all those articles in the Detroit newspapers about the shooting that happened in Oak Park, where a bunch of high school students got shot up, and those were my kids.
Mm.
I'll tell you, it's very hurtful. I'm watching all of the statements that come through and the racism that's displayed. You get all those typical comments about the quote unquote the usual suspects. This
Mm.
idea that these black kids don't know how to behave. All they were doing is having a party for an overnight party there. And actually, this young man was a good guy. At his age, he was an elder in his church. His father is a skilled tradesman, so HVAC guy. His mom is a teacher. She used to come by the school 3 times a week to check in, just a great lady. Kid was a talented football player on a scholarship to Olivet. And you have young people in the city of Detroit, by and large, are just good kids, and their circumstances are very difficult. In the last 5 years, I have tried to lead, create opportunities. I've created a great skilled trades program where I've already had over 130 of my students go into skilled trades careers. I formed dual enrollment and middle college partnerships with Lawrence Tech University and Wayne County Community College. And so one of the things I'm very big on is creating opportunity for the kids in the city. I believe in that. I'm very motivated. My favorite Bible verse is Micah 6:8. You know, it's to have mercy, do justice, and walk humbly with my Lord. I think, sometimes we conservatives don't think about the notion of justice. And I want to make it very clear. I don't believe in DEI, affirmative action, none of that none of that stuff. But I think we do need to make some efforts to really reach out and, wrap our arms around the kids in the city who have no fault of their own, have very, very difficult circumstances in their lives, And the best way out is to give them a good education or to create these great skilled trades programs. So I'm really proud of the work that I did in the city. I've worked in government in years past, and I was chief of staff to a congressman. I was a trade association director for 9 years. I led a construction trade association. So that's a little bit of my background. Why Wayne State? So Mike Basuito is a personal friend. He's on the board of directors. I know him because I was his kid's Boy Scout leader. But he called me up. He said, Andy, you're a good Republican and all that. He said, we need to get votes in the inner city Detroit. We need something a little different. Plus, you'll bring us a perspective of being a high school principal in the city of Detroit. Would you run? And I said, absolutely. So I'm in semi-retirement. I can now start devoting my time to, really bear down on the campaign. I'm excited about it. So what am I passionate about? First, I'd say there's one cluster of issues that I would call the meat and potatoes. So this is the governance. You pass an annual budget. We receive $250 million from the state of Michigan. That's a great reason, for us to be concerned about who's running these universities and how our dollars are being used. This year, if you were, we are going to write the new strategic plan for the next 5 to 7 years for the university. If you look at the current thing, I'd encourage you all to go in there. It's got DEI stuff all over the place.
Yeah.
Here's another thing about Wayne State. It is a great university. I'm running to support the place. No other university in the state of Michigan is probably better at providing upward mobility for working class kids, middle class kids, than Wayne State University. Grand Valley, Wayne State, Oakland have the highest percentages of kids who actually stay in the state of Michigan, and all of our tax money that we pump into it actually stays here in the state. The intellectual capital that we build and all those things, very, very important. So I want to just say that it's a great university with great graduate schools, with great research, and it's top notch. I have a concern about education in general at the higher education level. Now, if you look at statistics today, only 1 out of 10 college professors are conservative. And if you really kind of would slice and dice, and these are statistics provided by nonpartisan entities. If you slice and dice it, that's a lot of Christian colleges, that's the engineering faculty, it's the business faculty.
Right.
When you get into a lot of the faculties that really kind of produce a mindset of what the students are exposed to in terms of belief systems, of how the world works, what America is, what history is. I mean, it's just overwhelmingly left wing. And I think every one of us would say we know lots of families where the kids are raised in a conservative family, they leave. 4 years later, they come back and they're, social justice warriors. It's
Yeah.
because there's such a one-sided drumbeat of all of this type of messaging. All of the smart people, quote unquote, on campus are of the left and those kinds of things. The other thing is this intolerance that comes from that mindset. Do you know that it's over 70% of Democrat students who are sophomores at college say they would not accept being in the same dorm room with a Republican student.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
amazing. The mindset, the self-righteousness of that we know the right way to run the world. We believe in our politics and these kinds of it's just shocking to me.
And it's
And
not very inclusive,
not very inclusive and not, hey, what's the big word? Tolerant?
not very
Right?
tolerant.
Yeah, right. Not very tolerant. And then I think about just the college campus and is there really a robust debate? Can you truly say that there is an open environment where you have true critical thinking going on? Do you have genuine intellectual inquiry? Do students get exposed to a wide range of voices from all the way to the left to the right, which they should, so they can become critical thinkers, develop their own thought processes? And I think the answer is no. And so I really want to work on that. That's probably my number one thing. So I'd say good governance is a big thing. But the second thing is to create a climate of intellectual freedom, free speech. Self-censorship is a huge issue on campus today,
Yeah.
where conservative students can't even bring up their own voice and feel that they can speak to anything. I'll tell you, at the age of 65, I just graduated a year ago with a master's degree in education leadership at Grand Valley State University. I say 9 out of the 12 classes I took were excellent. They really prepared me to be a good principal. The other three that dealt with public policy, education and culture, etc., didn't even include what you would consider conventional left-wing stuff or conventional
Wow.
liberal stuff. It was all hardcore cultural Marxism that is just being dished out for these. Now, I have a strong enough worldview and have read and studied. The stuff absolutely doesn't impress me, and I just kind of tuned it out. But I think about these young, impressionable people, and I'm thinking, yeah. And Bree just brought up the same thing with professors feeling the freedom to speak out. There's a lot of data, a lot of research data on the fact that the conservative voice is being squelched and
Yeah.
stamped out and just shut out on the college campus. So these are the things that I really want to get on the college campus and battle.
Okay. Thanks,
Any
Sandy.
questions or
So if we want to get a hold of you or someone wants to get your yard sign, how do they get a hold of you? Or you want to put it in the chat, put
yeah,
your maybe your website and your email, and how do they get signs to put in there? I'm still old school. I see a sign on someone's lawn, I know they're supporting them, especially
yeah,
with these races that no one really pays. We have to keep reminding people to make sure they fill out the entire ballot because these
absolutely. No,
our school
I will do
boards
that.
need them.
I will put my website in the you know in the chat here. But I do just want to say one more thing. When you look at even the Ivy League universities that are hardcore left wing today, that don't even believe in any kind of notion that there's anything true or real in the world, everything's whatever you believe in, they were all built in the idea of truth and all essentially Christian colleges.
They were.
And I just want to say it's flat out. I say it publicly. I say it when I'm on the stump. I'm a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. I am saved by His mercy and grace, period. And I'm not afraid to speak out on my Christian faith. And I'll tell you what, we shouldn't cower in the public square. It's
Right.
acceptable to be LGBT and you name all these other kind of things. It's almost like we Christians sometimes feel like we've got to be afraid of it. I'm not saying we'd be obnoxious about it. We got to be bold, forceful. And again, the university should be about the pursuit of the truth.
Right.
What is,
Right.
and Pilate asked, oh, what is truth? Right?
Yeah.
That's the mind of the modern university. So anyway, I want to get in there and mix it up and fight the good fight for y'all. Okay?
All right. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Andy.
Yeah, you
Appreciate
bet.
it.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
he'll drop his info in the chat. And I want to have Julie Maday. Is it Maday or Maday? How do you say
Maday,
it?
Maday.
Maday. I thought so. And Julie is here and she's running on the MSU Board of Trustees. Boy, their work is cut out for them on that board. And Julie, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background and why are you running and how do we get a hold of you?
Sure. So thanks, Andy, for that. It's hard to follow him because he's just so amazing. Just not just as, just the fact that he does what he does for so many kids that need him. So it's impressive. And I won't reiterate everything he says, or everything he said that I believe in because it's core to me as well. I will just acknowledge the fact that my children were those conservative children throughout high school and college that were not afraid to speak up. And unfortunately, with the Charlie Kirk assassination, I fear that some of that strength that they had speaking
Mm,
might get shut out a little bit more because there's not somebody, they always knew, oh, what would Charlie do? And then they felt confident speaking their voice. But anyways, my name is Julie Maday. I am running for the Michigan State University Board of Trustees. Some of you may recognize me. I ran 2 years ago. I received 2.5 million votes and I came up 4,000 votes short.
oh my
So it was
gosh.
a tough loss. In fact, the Detroit News called my race for me. And then there was a clerical error in one of the counties, and a zero was left out. And instead of winning by 14,000, I lost by four.
Oh,
So I was pretty upset. I whined about it in my house for a few months, and then I realized it does no good to whine. I got to fight the fight. Um, I've been married to I live in Novi. I've been married to my husband for about 32 years, almost 33. We have two children, which is why I've obviously been so, involved with the education in Novi and then on to Michigan State because both my kids graduated from Michigan State. Um, we have I graduated from the University of Michigan Dearborn, so I didn't have a huge affiliation with my college campus because it's a commuter campus. When I married my husband, I essentially became a Spartan. We've been supporting the university for 30 plus years, engaged on campus life. My husband sat on boards. We are, if you know my family, you'd say that we bleed green and white. Um, why did I get in the race originally? Bunch of reasons. Again, I went from advocating in the Novi schools for my kids and for all the conservative kids and parents that would reach out to me and say, "Hey, what do I do about this?" to now my son's at Michigan State as a freshman and COVID hits. When COVID hit, I realized my daughter was still in high school at the time, but I realized I need to focus a lot of my attention now on the college level because my son was really affected at Michigan State. Their mandates and their logic was horrific. And they did have an epidemiologist as the president of the time, which probably made it a lot worse. Um, I don't think I need to give you all the details about COVID. We've all been there. We're reliving it again with Fauci's testimony. I will tell you that my son had 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 a lot of problems on campus because they required him to get the COVID shot. He didn't want to do it. He fought it. He couldn't fight it. He finally did it because he wanted to. He was president of his fraternity. He was engaged with student senate, and he was not going to be able to do that stuff. So he got the shot, and as a result, was rushed to the ER. So
Oh my gosh.
that was one thing that really, really got me engaged at Michigan State. My daughter, side note, my daughter, when she started at Michigan State, she was on scholarship for rowing, partial scholarship. And again, she would not have been able to row and receive her scholarship if she didn't get the COVID shot. So that was, and I'd add too, she never would have made that team if she had to compete against boys on her team. It just wouldn't have happened.
Right.
It's a time sport. It's a reality. Um, Another reason I got involved was because at the time, I think we all know everything that's happened at Michigan State over the years, starting with Larry Nasser. It's been a disaster. There's no accountability and no transparency on that board. That board consists of a lot of people that, if I'm being quite honest, are just not good humans. They have no desire to do what's right. They just want to self-promote themselves and make a name for themselves. And there's been so much crazy stuff going on in that board. Um, the dean of the business school, which we were actively involved with the business school and we knew him personally, was let go because of woke reasons and because of politics at the university. And that was another thing that catapulted me for running. Everybody, a lot of the donors were like, you have to run. You have to do this, Julie. So I did do that. And just another side note, Sanjay Gupta was the dean of the business school when he was wrongfully terminated. He is now back at Michigan State. They had
Oh,
to basically bring him back because he had a lawsuit against them and
good.
they knew they were in the wrong. Um, I graduated from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. I sat on the Novi City Council. I sat on Planning Commission for years. I currently sit on the Novi Economic Development Committee. Been a precinct delegate since 2016. I always like to tell people, and it's true, that if you live in Novi and you are a active liberal, you know my name and you don't like me. Um, and I normally am not proud of that, but in some ways I am, because that means as a delegate, I'm getting the word out and I'm doing what I need to do.
Mhm.
Um, I hate saying this too, but it's a reality. Before my last election 2 years ago, I was a breast cancer survivor. And when I went through that and no, for as engaged in politics as I was, and after going through that, I realized I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Nothing can bring me
Right.
down. When you're facing, you
Wow.
have the thought of facing death. Like I'm in this for the fight and I'm not worried what people think anymore. And that really put my campaign in a different trajectory. I ran with Mike Baylor last time. Some of you may know him. He's the
Yeah.
only sitting Republican on that MSU board.
He needs you
Um,
there.
he needs me there. I don't know if people have heard this, but we would be the minority on that board. However, we could also make people aware of what's going on. So, two quick things about it, and then I'll stop talking. Back in the last fall, the I'm sorry, the fall that Mike got on the board. So that was 2 years ago, I guess. Um, the kids came to school and they had just refurbished one of the dorm rooms. Spent millions of dollars, which it was needed, so I'll give them that. The kids showed up. All of a sudden, about 2 weeks later, Mike got a call from a father of a daughter that was at that dorm saying, "Hey, have you heard of this?" Essentially, they built this dorm with shared bathrooms for boys and girls. So there was no place for these young girls to use a restroom where there wasn't a boy right next to them. And they didn't tell the kids when they showed up on campus. They didn't tell the parents, they didn't tell
Oh
the
my
kids that they were
gosh.
going into shared bathrooms. So again, it took a couple weeks for these girls to start reaching out to the parents saying, "Hey, this is happening, blah, blah, blah." If it wasn't for Mike on that board, I'm not sure anything would have gotten resolved the way it did. So again, being in the minority, you can still accomplish things with the eyes
Yeah,
and ears of the university.
absolutely.
And for those of you that are following Michigan State, you also know that Mike is currently censured
Yeah.
because he will not sign a non-disclosure agreement, $250,000 personal liability disclosure agreement, which obviously we all know when you hold a public office, you should not be signing NDAs because you're responsible for the taxpayers. And he has been stripped of all of his benefits, meaning he doesn't get
Wow.
paid, but like he's not allowed to go to any games. The only time he's allowed to be associated with MSU is at public board meetings.
Wow. Wow.
So why did that happen? Well, he so originally, I won't get into a lot of the detail, but it has a lot to do with the sports fund that they started. And he questioned things, and a couple of the people questioned what's going on behind closed doors. Can we know what's going on as a board? They didn't want to do it. They wanted to make it a private entity to raise money for the athletics. So as a result, he started asking questions. The president, nobody would answer his questions. So a handful of them said, "Okay, well, we're going to get it on the public meeting. Will you guys all agree to get on the public meeting?" Three of them said yes, because it takes three to get on the public agenda. Well, the president didn't like that because he didn't want it to be public. So he said, "Well, it takes three to get it on the agenda, but it takes five to take it off, including me." So he took it right off of the agenda. So
Mhm.
then Mike went to, and he wrote an op-ed in the Detroit News and said, "This is what's going on.
Great.
Nobody will help me." So as a result, he's
Yeah.
now, the censured, like he can't do anything on campus other than his simple things. So I could probably give you lots of instances, and I won't waste too much more of your time, but I have so many passionate reasons for being on this board, and it's personal. It's
Yeah.
not because I mean I didn't start this engagement being at the university level because I wanted to do anything other than be a part of the education system that's failing in our state.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh gosh, Julie, we really need you there. And I'm sure Mike is counting the days for you to join him. And that's a great example of whether you're in the minority or majority, you still can lead. You can lead from the minority. It's a little tougher, but your voice is still important because we have a lot of school board candidates. Even I just saw one just join us. Too, that we had a training before this. I think I saw Dr. Wendy Webster join us, and I'm hoping she said she was planning to run for school board, and others have. And so, even if you are a minority, we got to start somewhere. And I just said this to someone else that it's like eating an elephant, and you just got to take it one bite at a time, and eventually you're going to get there. But if you never go for it, we won't ever. And whether it's at that local school board that's so important where your kids go up right up on to these college kids. I'm so glad we have such good people running for these university boards. We'll have the U of M candidates next time because they can make a difference on policy, which
Oh,
direct.
I'm not dressed. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I
I
Wendy.
muted you. I'm sorry, I muted you. Hold on.
Okay. But anyway, Julie, can you please tell us in the chat, make sure please put your information, how best to get a hold of you, your website, and if you are getting yard signs out, how to get them, and or folks, let them, again, I'm going to say this because I remember helping out candidates, let these two candidates know, hey, there's a big event in my county in 3 weeks. You might want to come because there's a lot of people there. It's get out the vote time, folks, and get people registered for absentee ballots so that your vote is counted early. That's crucial this year. Let's be as good as we can be at that game, as well as our opponents. And Citizens for Traditional Values also does voter guides. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. But I think I'm gonna move on because now we're getting into our last half of the hour. Matt Wilks is with Get Kids Back to School. You all know Matt Wilk. But Matt, just quickly before I go to you, I also wanted to give a heads up. We had at least 10, 12 people say they were running for school board after we did a training. And I know there's a lot of school boards out there and there's a lot more needed, but I'll start with the 12 who are saying, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run. And I'm sure there are more than just that. Those are people who happen to sign up on our form, but we want to be of help in any way. And I wanted to give you a heads up too, folks, that we are affiliated with an organization called iVoter Guide, and they are also looking to post some guides in specific school district areas. There's about 10. They can't do the whole state, but I will send that to you tomorrow, what areas. So if you're in any of these school districts, Warren, Taylor, Saginaw, Granville, Forest Hills, Eaton Rapids, East Grand Rapids, Chippewa Hills, and Ann Arbor. And you want to make sure that people are voting, the right people in for those school board candidates, you can forward the iVoter Guide to them, and I'll get that information to you. But just really, really happy that we did get people signing up July 21st, and let us know how we can support you. On that note, one of the ways we're going to do that is with Matthew here. Many of you know Matt. He started Get Kids Back to School during the height of COVID. So look at how much we have COVID to thank for. The really incredible people that got very engaged, and waking up parents to say, what the heck is going on in my school? Matt is a very skilled attorney, as well as has been doing school board campaign trainings. He and I did that one about a month ago. And today he's going to talk about school finance, because for any one of you, no matter which school board you're on or which school board you're going to help and go with a candidate or go to a board and be there as a parent, you have to understand school finance. So we wanted to make this a quick tutorial, right, Matt?
I can only do, I went through the slides and I had revenue and expenditures, and I said, I can't do both. Like, I got a half an hour. If I got a half an hour, I got to do one or the other. We can do the other one later. We can do revenue. Revenue is the one that a lot of people talk about, and it is going to be a very big campaign issue. This is saving money is a big issue. And
Sure.
one of the questions a lot of people ask is, what do my taxes go towards? And you have the right to vote in the state of Michigan to vote down taxes. So you as a candidate, every one of the candidates on this system, you want to be talking about how you're going to be good stewards of the public's money. And you can't do that unless you know where the money comes from. And then I don't know, maybe a future one will do, where does it have to go to?
Yeah, great. Are you able to share from where you are, or do I need to?
I have to send you a request, which I just did.
Did you just send it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you did. Okay, wait a minute. Allow. Okay.
All right, and I will go right to it. To start, I want to let everybody know, please break into this with questions. You can do it either through the chat or raise your hand. It is much better when this is interactive. Stop me if you have questions, and we can go through it. Very quick frame of reference, I'm a former school board member. I served for 8.5 years in Northville, won 2 elections. I think it is critical. It is absolutely critical that you understand the issues on which you are running. I've had multiple candidates say, I'm going to do this, only to find out that this happens to be illegal or impractical or highly unlikely. You want to stand out as a candidate, and having knowledge about how things work really helps you. I will tell you, I've had multiple times where a candidate has been very impressive and knowledgeable about issues, and they don't win, and then they get appointed when somebody resigns because they're like, this person really dug in. You want to be prepared so you have these discussions, because a lot of times you'll hear things from parents, hey, what about this, what about that, and it may not be true or not. Okay, so we're going to talk about school finance. Like I said, we're going to talk about revenue to start. This is where does the money come in. We'll talk about considerations on spending. We'll briefly glance over it a little bit. There is some homework. If you are running for your school board position, you need to know how your particular district fits in the whole scheme of things. Okay, very important. They're not all the same. We do not have uniform funding in this state. Okay. And again, pause, stop me, raise hand, ask questions, and I will be happy to answer them. In the state of Michigan, schools are funded primarily through three state sources. Okay? There's the school aid fund, which makes up the vast majority of your funding. Some counties, not all of them, have an enhancement millage. You might know that a few days ago in Oakland County, voters in an election that was probably about 75 or 80% of the people voting happened to be Democrats because of their senatorial campaign, they voted against this enhancement millage, which means there are a lot of people, who are traditionally vote Democratic, but are also particular about taxes. That is a large voting block. Okay? One of the things about schools that's very, very, very important, it is a zero-sum game. You receive money, you spend it on X. If you don't want to spend it on X, and you want to spend it on Y, it's a choice. There's no magical, this is not like the federal government, there's no magical money printing machine that your school has. I had this question come to me from Northville. Why don't we just raise money to do X? You can't do that. That's why you can't do that. Okay, there are rules against that. I literally just had this superintendent who I hold in very, very low regard put a thing out and said, we're going to fund X. And myself and another school board member who and I we're not politically aligned, but we're friends. We both said, hey, you can't do that. Like, that's unlawful. And I think the post may have been deleted. This is another one of these things. But be knowledgeable about it. Local millages fund for local bonds / sinking fund only. Okay? So locally funded things have very strict requirements on what you can use the money for. We're going to talk about that at another show. And we're going to talk about how we use our money. But those are the main sources of state revenue. Now, federal sources and special education are two other things. They're very complex. They are use limited in a very, very high regard. You will see when you look through at your own district and you dig into the school's finances, you will see a Title I audit if your school district has any Title I. Most schools, even Northfield, did. You will see a Title I audit to make sure that that money is used appropriately. That's very, very tricky. It's also got like huge tripwires, and if you do something you shouldn't, bad things can happen. Your percentage of revenue that comes from the federal government, free and reduced lunch is a good proxy with one big carve-out. The carve-out is, when we gave everybody free lunches at schools, parents then did what? They were very reluctant to sign up as needing free and reduced lunch because they already got what they thought they wanted. But it comes with a lot of other things, including paying for staff, books, materials, whole buildings, right? Title I's a thing. And it could be thousands a child. So often you'll say, this district spends $21,000 a kid, and because that includes federal sources. Okay, that's really too broad of a discussion for here. I'm going to do this really quick. Hang on. school. Am I?
Yeah, while you're looking for that, Matt.
I'm just putting my email in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying. So if you run across a question on that kind of funding, just email me, or that, or any other question for that matter. Go ahead, Eileen. You had a question.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say on the special ed funding, that's a big discussion. Kristen Lee is on with us, and I'm going to give her a couple of minutes when you're done, Matt. Kristen is with Citizens Defending Freedom, and she is faithfully covering the state school board meetings. Thank you so much, Kristen. Those are not as fun to go to. And she was mentioning to me, I mean, this special ed is a big discussion right now, and how the funds are being spent, where they can be spent, how many, how much of them are there, how do we best do it? Just as a quick note on that, when I saw it on your slide.
Yeah, that's way too complicated. That'll take up 29 of the
Yeah.
30 minutes, so I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that. Okay, so let's get back to the school aid fund. That makes up the bulk of your funding. All school property taxes go to the state for redistribution. So on your tax bill, if you are a homeowner, and Hal, please speak to what the school has allocated per student in the coming year. It's like 2 or 3 slides up, 2 slides up. No, next slide. So you pay 6 mills, and the 6 mills goes to the state, and then the state redistributes it based on pupil count. The exception is if your district is what's called a hold harmless district. So when this was passed in 1994, some districts had more money from their local millages than the state would otherwise provide. So they said, you can keep going. And this is not, they aren't all rich districts. There are some, Grosse Pointe, Bloomfield, Birmingham. There are some very less so, like Romulus, because it has the airport, right? There are other things. So you need to find out, is your district a hold harmless district? I can help you do that. It's now called 22A. There's all kinds of things. We'll get to that in a second. After the state gets all that money, and they add a whole bunch of things into the school aid fund. They add lottery revenue. They add some portion of the sales tax. They add some portion of the income tax. They add the property taxes, marijuana taxes, other sin tax. They put in all a big pot. And then they divide it up, for the most part, on pupil count. Okay? So you get revenue not related to the amount of taxes your district members pay. That's very important. Most people don't know that. Okay? So, Hal, to your point, the base foundation allowance in the 26-27 budget is $10,300. Okay? That has gone up every year since 2011, I think.
Yeah.
So now we're on 15 straight years of rising. Okay? That's true for all districts except hold harmless. Hold harmless has their own levels, and they can be higher. There used to be differences between districts that were not hold harmless. That gap is now closed and is now 0. Okay? Hold harmless maxes out, the largest one I saw at $13,758, but there are some exceptions for really, really small districts. They get more money. Very, very important fact. Most important fact you can take away from this whole thing, my half an hour, is less enrollment means less funding. So the best thing you can do as a school board member is, how can we get more kids in our district? And if we get more kids, then we get more money, and you'll see how that works when I get to it in a second. Okay? So the school aid fund, Gary, I can talk about non-homestead in a second. So let me break that down for just a second. So in addition to that, the individual school district can tax non-homestead, that is commercial property and rental property, and that's added to the pot up to how much you have in your foundation allowance. Okay, so let's say the foundation allowance is 10,300, and you happen to collect 5,000 from non-operating millage or non-homestead millage, you get another 5,300. So it doesn't help. It's bad if you lose it, right? Because there are rules about how much you can get if you don't do a millage, but it doesn't increasing it, or it's always 18 mils. You can't really increase it, and it doesn't really do anything at the end of the day, because the 10,300 is net of the non-homestead millage. Great question, Gary. The school aid fund had 19.8 million gross in 26-27. It's a big point of contention that I'll explain. This is another one you need to know because you're going to hear it on the campaign trail. The state paid 19.5 billion. The feds paid 400 million, which was down a lot from the previous year. Now, some of that was related to COVID. Yeah, Wendy, I would love to hear your ideas. I think one of the most important things we do about our work is this is district agnostic, and especially my mom taught in parochial in Detroit for many years, and then in Roseville. My dad taught in Warren Con for years. There are all kinds of ideas about how can you get more butts in seats, right? And that's not necessarily competition with neighboring districts or competition with, but it might be competition with academies or with private options. And look, if your product is good, you'll get people to come to your school. If it's not, they won't. They'll make other choices. Back to the thing on federal funding, the school aid fund put an asterisk, and it said 400 million plus all available funding. So I will send a copy. Eileen, you can, when we did this last time, there's a bunch of attachments. I'll get them all to Eileen. She can get them all to people. One of them is the school aid summary conference. If you want to blow up your own screen, you can see it. And the difference is about 1.9 billion that came from the feds. And what they did was, did we cut funding or did we increase funding? Because the Republicans wanted to say they cut funding, and Democrats wanted to say we gave more money, but they really did both, right? So Fed funding is really not, they took it out of kind of a negotiating point, right? So if the feds were going to come up with $1 billion, great. If the feds were going to come up with $2 billion, great. We're going to take it all. We're just not going to include it in our own budget, which is kind of not really a cut, and it's not really a raise either. We're going to get into the concept of categoricals in a second. It's really games with Fed funding. Republicans needed to show funding cuts. Democrats needed to show funding. It was the same funding, right? 10.3 was about what they had last year. That's a really good rule of thumb. There's one little change that's very important for you to know, but the overall base foundation allowance is a good barometer of sort of how things are done. If you, when you see this chart, you can see that, as I said, it's gone up every year. It had a little blip in 2011. That was after COVID. So that was for the Great Recession. The Great Recession caused property values to fall. I think I'm not muted. It took a year for that to work through. Turn it off, and when it did, the numbers went down. Okay. Can you turn it down a minute?
Okay. Wendy, can you mute yourself, please?
That's Shannon. Okay. All right. Let's get back to this. So school budgets were due June 30th. All right. So your homework today is to find yours. Are you running in a district where the budget looks good, looks bad, looks indifferent? Most of them were completed before the school aid bill had passed. So there may be doing a budget amendment. Those are probably, if your particular district has online meetings, go back and look at that one, because that one's an important one, and you can see how they adjust to the results of the school aid bill. The framing you use for campaign is, and this has always been very good, you need people with fiscal discipline. Okay, and like I alluded to, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who voted in the last election, the primary election that happened last week, don't call themselves necessarily conservative or Republican, but they're very concerned about taxes. Okay, so when you express that, hey, we're not going to waste our money anymore, and a lot of us as conservatives can identify a whole bunch of things that are wastes of money, That's a very powerful campaign position.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for bringing that up in terms of we really want you to have that understanding, and I'm learning new stuff even as I'm listening again, and I'm not on a school board. But how we talk about this issue is just like, no, don't just say, oh, no new taxes. I mean, I think we have to frame it the right way, because people are feeling like, wait a minute, I don't have enough, and everything I'm buying in the store is going up.
Yeah.
And this framing of the issue is really important, Matt. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I don't see Courtney on, so I'll call her name. Courtney and her husband David Prout are running for the Taylor School Board.
Oh,
Okay?
right.
Taylor has, and I will tell her this, I had the opportunity to volunteer with a teacher in the Taylor School District, and I didn't tell her who I was, I didn't tell her my political beliefs, and she was spitting fire about the incompetence of their board as they wasted, I'm not making this up, 30 million tax dollars. It's wild. So that's a very powerful issue. So if you look for it, you can look on the website, you can call your district office, write a polite letter. FOIA is the last resort. Most of the time, the budget information is very, I will stop here for a second if anyone has any questions. Wendy, it's more awful than you can possibly imagine. If it was a corporation, someone would have gone to jail. Let me put it that way. That's the difference in school, and it was legendary. And when I got calls about it, I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe what had happened.
It was a misspending of a millage, right? They have to be very specific in how you spend money you raise in a millage.
Yeah, they told the public they were building a school for $30 million. After receiving approval from the voters and issuing the bonds, it was then revealed that, well, actually the school cost $50 million. And since you've already issued the bonds and received the money, you must spend it. You can't simply give it back. And now they have $30 million of stuff they've done that was not priced in, that people didn't want, and they still need a new school.
Yeah.
And they're never going to get it. They will never go back to their public for a bond. It'll be a generation before they'll have any authority to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about enrollment for a second, because enrollment is the key to funding. You get an X dollars per student times a certain number of students equals your funding. It is a very, very important and almost the most powerful campaign theme, especially as conservatives, because what we have seen in a lot of districts is parents pulling their kids to homeschool, pulling their kids to private, pulling their kids to charter. Okay? So how do you convert those issues, which are personal choices, into an issue that affects your district? You do it through funding. We're going to get to a nice example in a second. Very potent campaign theme. I just pulled up an example of a chart that my district has from a couple years back. You saw that between 2020 and 2021, they lost about 400 kids. And it was a disaster, and they've never come back. That information is publicly available as well. You can find that on your district. You should know how many kids you have and whether that's a struggle point. Some districts it's been a big struggle point. You also want to find out how many schools of choice kids you have, because that could sometimes be a positive and a negative depending on which district you're in. Whether it's something your district wants to improve upon, hey, people are choosing our school, that's great, or whether that's in some districts it's viewed as a negative because we can't get our own kids, so now we got to get out of district kids. It depends, it's very district specific on that. You can see Northville's plummeted and never recovered. That directly impacts the budget. How many happened in your district? Wendy, they're leaving. Generally, the number of kids in Michigan has been declining, but it's been a very steady decline. You will hear the problem. The problem is our birth rate. The birth rate has been going down since I joined the board in 2012. Okay? And Catherine, good comment. Yes, we'll get into curriculum. Actually, I don't know where, it's somewhere in here. If you offer a more traditional, rigorous curriculum, guess what? You will attract more kids.
Right.
It's very rare that you're going to hear a parent say, I don't want to send my kids to that school. The work's too hard. I don't think I've ever heard that. I don't care whether you are college educated yourself or whatever, you want your kids to have that rigor. And yes, Wendy, the curriculum they're pushing a lot of these things is it's very ideological because they need it to be. Okay, so foundational allowance makes up the vast majority of your funds. School budgets are online by law. Pull up yours and get familiar. Enhancement millage, some counties have an enhancement millage. Oakland was on deck. We talked about that for a second. County level, it's up to 2 mills. It's dispensed like the foundation allowance. One of the things, if in particular districts, some districts you want to make a point of this, others at Oakland you could, that some districts are donor districts and some districts are recipient districts. So Northville was very much a donor district. We were promised 50 cents on the dollar. We got 38. It's actually lower than that now. So for every dollar that our taxpayers paid, we got 38 cents on the dollar. Okay. That was renewed in 2024 in Wayne County for anyone who wants to know. A mill is 1/10 of 1% of taxable value. Okay? So on $100,000 taxable value, it's $100. I never talk about it that way because people don't live in $100,000 homes anymore.
Right.
Right? We talk about the whole thing. The school operating millage, the one that Gary and I were talking about, is 18 mills. Owner occupied are exempt from that portion. You pay the state education tax, which is 6 mills. Okay? Here's a fun fact. When you build new housing that doesn't have kids in it, a new 55 plus community, you do not help your tax base for school purposes. You do not get more revenue for school purposes.
Huh?
That
Wow.
doesn't really help schools at all. Okay. There's other couple things. Sources of funds, bond funds, which can be sinking funds, construction funds, or capital funds. They have specific uses that are delineated in the language that was given to voters. Okay, most of the time it's pretty broad. It cannot be used. They have limited duration. They have a fixed rate. The rate falls over time due to what's called the Headley Amendment. If you have a bond that brings in $20 million of tax revenue a year, and that's at 1 mil, and next year our taxable value goes up. According to Headley, the rate goes down because you only authorize $20 million of taxes at one time. It must go to voters for approval. In some districts, many districts, it is a major point of contention right now. You are seeing bonds fail in a lot of places.
Yeah. Unusual, even in places they've never failed before. So
Correct.
the mindset of the voter is not to spend more money on schools.
Correct. Okay, let's skip right through. I want to give you a couple quick things because I have about 5 minutes left. How does reduced enrollment affect class sizes? Answer, it increases class sizes. How does it do that? Let me give you an example. Let's say, and this, we'll get a copy of this thing because we're going through it a little quickly. Let's say you start with a class size, like a second grade. Your second grade class is 50 kids. You have 2 teachers. That's 25 kids a class. Okay? You must have a balanced budget in the state of Michigan. All right? So you're going to bring it in, you're going to spend it. Now, let's say you add 10 kids. So you now have 60 kids, but you also have $100,000 more in revenue. Enough to hire 1 or 2 more teachers. Let's say you hire 1. Now you have 3 teachers, 60 kids, 20 kids a class. Okay, what about if you lose 10 kids? You lost 10 kids, now you have 40. Your district lost $100,000. Almost all districts spend everything they bring in and more. So now you have to fire 1 or 2 teachers. Now you're left with 40 kids in a class. Increasing enrollment reduces class sizes. Second most important lesson from today. Can't voters just opt to increase taxes to pay more for teachers? No, they cannot do that. That is illegal. Proposal A prohibits that, and Headley requires that it goes to voters. Because that's how it was done in the past. Rich districts would increase their taxes to pay their teachers more, and there was this separation. So in 1994, they made a bargain. They said, we're gonna lift up the bottom, but the top can't go wild, with the exception of hold harmless districts, they really haven't increased their millages, but they've increased their property values. Okay, foundation allowance is set by the state, 10,300. Enhancement millage is one thing you can do, but that's really county-wide, and it's size limit. It's only 2 mills. And bond funds cannot be used for salaries and benefits, period. So when you're talking about a bond and somebody says, well, these teachers are overpaid, you can, even as a conservative, say, those are two different things. Okay?
Right.
What a last free scanning question here. What about COVID money? Easter 1, Easter 2, Easter 3? The answer is time's up. The spending plan for Easter 3 was partially found unconstitutional. The money is gone. Very important for you to check your budget. Did your budget use COVID money for structural things like hiring staff? Because when that money's gone, what do you then do with the staff? I don't know. I haven't heard too much about it here. I just read an article in the Wall Street Journal about LAUSD, the largest school district. I think it might be the largest in the country, Los Angeles. They are teetering on bankruptcy because they poured all their COVID money into salaries and benefits. The COVID cliff of funding came, and they have no idea where they're going to get it from.
Wow.
Last, real quick, there's something called categoricals. Categoricals are a list of extra funding for specific purposes. Okay, it's a pretty long list. It used to be called best practices in our history. You'd like, hey, we're going to do this, but it's got a lot of little things, and both houses of the state house and state senate, both parties really have sort of warmed up to this. Hey, we're going to give a little bit of extra money for the trades, or we're going to give extra money for robotics, or whatever it is. Okay, so look into your own district. I'll forward you a document that has most of that in there.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll just go through this last one. So the campaign point: the choices that drove kids from the district are going to result in larger class sizes. We are going to aggressively recruit kids back. The curricula, focus on the basics. Are you even asking why the parents had left?
Yeah.
Or are you afraid of the answer? So I want one last thing I'd like you to do. If you could email Citizens for Traditional Values with your choice of what you'd like to hear me talk about next. We got school finance, expenditures, collective bargaining, OMA and FOIA, and board roles. We kind of glanced on that a little bit. So pick something or something else and let Eileen know, hey, I'd really like to hear about this. Campaign finance is another one I think we ought to do at some point. But those are all great topics to talk about. I like having I like having the candidates that I work with to be educated on the issues. Very, very important. So if anyone has any questions or you want to talk about any of those things in particular, I'm happy to answer them both here or privately if you prefer.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much, Matt. Wow. A lot to absorb, and not the most fun, sexy topic, but it's the one that's most important when you're talking about schools. It always comes down, where are they putting the money, and what are they doing with that money to also fund things that are totally against your own values, the values of their parents, which we've all seen. I want to remind everyone it's 8:03, so I'm not going to I have a top 10 document for you to do, to take a look at as we go into September and into the schools. What questions do we ask? Remember that these school boards all started meeting in April, May to look at the new so-called guidelines, and they are just that, guidelines on the health curricula. And remember, you have the opt-out option always. You will just have to be really diligent to look at your kids' curriculum, and you have every right as parents to ask for that curriculum. You may see it. And if you're just to reiterate, if your school teaches sex education, they have to abide by the law and have a sex education advisory board that's made up of parents and of clergy. So, and actually the state law is very clear about abstinence, and the state law actually was much better, the actual law, better than most expected. So if you're just know that that is your framework to really push back against any additions. And as Katie Boussard shared with us, make sure they know, golly, we don't want to be held liable for lawsuits if we do this wrong. And we want to make sure we're very diligent with our funding. So just Matt, great point on those issues when we talk to our legislators, when we talk to our, school board superintendents. Um, while we disagree primarily on the main issue of we don't want our children learning values contrary to ours, we also have to make the arguments that will help us get the votes you need. And they are no one the school boards don't want to have lawsuits, and they don't have a lot of money. Well, some of them do, but just to encourage you, we'll send that tomorrow with our follow-up. It's kind of a top 10 list as you go into the new school year. And we're going to have some more candidates come on. I'm going to see who else I can get. I know everyone wants to talk to everyone because we all need each other to get our candidates over the finish line and make sure they're voted into office. Thank you everybody for being patient. I know I'm about 5 minutes over. But please join us next September. It's the second Tuesday in September. I should have that date exactly on my
The 9th.
it's the 9th, I believe, right?
The 9th.
Yes. No, it's actually Tuesday, September 8th.
Oh, Tuesday. You said Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday the 8th. I apologize.
Tuesday, September 8th. And hopefully we'll see all of you there and more. And take a look. We'll send this link to you at your Secretary of State office. Look who won your school district's boards, and let us know if you have candidates in your school board area, in your area of the state. You have to let me know, is it what city, what town, what township, and we can share with others. Hey, if you know this school board member, help him. But we can't do it ourselves, and all of you have a big network. So thank you, everybody. I will let you go. Thanks for your patience.